Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.
Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about Charlie Chaplin's mother, Hannah Chaplin, and Academy Award-winning actress Gloria Grahame. Now, the first Hollywood historical woman in crisis I'm going to be talking about is Hannah Chaplin. Now, Hannah Chaplin is an actress who was the mother of legendary silent film performer Charlie Chaplin and legendary director Sidney Hawks. And Hannah Chaplin sadly wound up becoming a woman in crisis ever since she was about 16 years old. Now, Hannah Chaplin was the daughter of a shoemaker of gypsy stock, and she ran away from home at 16 years old in the hopes of getting a better prospects of a better life, naming herself after famous Victorian music hall star Lily Langtry as she went to become an actress. And as Hannah Chaplin went to become an actress, she eventually wound up falling in love with Charles Chaplin Sr., who she had worked with as participating in a popular comic opera. And as she wound up falling in love with Charles Chaplin Sr., what happened to Hannah Chaplin was she had these dreams of becoming a big-time star and going out here and making the big money and being with a high-status man. And that's what she thought Charles Chaplin Sr. was going to be, but things weren't really going as fast as she thought they were supposed to go. And when she saw another man called Sidney Hawks, a Cockney man who said that he was a rich aristocrat who had vast colonial estates, this is where Hannah Chaplin's hypergamy wound up kicking in. And as she thought she was going to be able to get involved with another higher status man with more resources, what happened was Hannah Chaplin looked to monkey branch over to Sidney Hawks, believing that Sidney Hawks was going to go out here and be a man who would allow her to live a high life. But what happened was that Sidney Hawks was not a rich aristocrat. No, he was just a poor guy who was looking to try to find a way to get quick money, and he looked for somebody to help him get that quick money as she went with him to this boomtown of Switzerland in South Africa, and that's where Sidney Hawks pimped out Hannah Chaplin and wound up making her a prostitute in the dance halls that served all of the gold miners looking for their fortunes in Africa. And as Hannah Chaplin was turned out by Sidney Hawks, who basically was a Cockney pookie, as she was turned out by the Johns in Africa and then turned out by Sidney Hawks himself, Hannah Chaplin in 1884 felt like she had enough of the hustles from Cockney pookie, and what she did was, as she was pregnant with Sidney Hawks' son, went out to seek out Charles Chaplin, again looking to monkey branch, hoping to find better prospects at a man who had more resources. Unfortunately, as Hannah Chaplin looked to monkey branch over to Charles Chaplin Sr., she wound up getting a venereal disease, syphilis. Now, as Hannah Chaplin was out here and got back with Charles Chaplin Sr., she wound up having her son, Charlie Chaplin, in 1889, and as she wound up having this son, she wound up eventually winding up having more kids for other men. She wound up getting involved, again, her hypergamy wound up kicking in after she got involved with Charlie Chaplin having his son. she then decided to go get with Leo Dryden and have a third son. So Hannah Chaplin basically had three kids by three different fathers, and she managed to alienate all of those fathers because of her hypergamous nature, and she wound up alienating all of those fathers because all she wanted to do was get with what we call today a high value man, and she wanted to get with a rich man and live the high life. And as she looked to find this rich man to give her the high life, what she did was create a dysfunctional situation that wound up leading to her becoming a woman in crisis and becoming a baby mama. And as Hannah Chaplin wound up becoming a baby mama, she wound up going out here and struggling, having to take jobs in smaller theaters to feed her children. And she wound up going out here having to pawn her gowns just to pay the rent. Again, everything was falling apart for Hannah Chaplin, and it was all falling apart because of her greed, because Hannah Chaplin wanted to go out here and find a guy to go out here and try to take advantage of, but wound up falling apart as related to it. Now, her entire stage career wound up falling apart one night when her singing voice cracked and sank to a whisper in the middle of a performance, and that's where Charlie Chaplin, her son by Charles Chaplin Sr., wound up taking over her part and finished the act. But Hannah Chaplin her life started to get worse as related to the syphilis, because she was dealing with migraines and hallucinations, and these headaches, which would last all the way up to a month. These headaches would basically just make it where she couldn't work. And because of these headaches, she could not work. She wound up going into the poorhouse. And sadly, Charlie Chaplin wound up being moved into an orphanage. And as he was moved into an orphanage, he was winding up struggling. But things started getting worse as related to her life. And again, she was then still trying to get her life back together. And she managed to recover for a minute. And as she recovered for a minute, this is where Hannah Chaplin wanted to make a complete change and wanted to go out here and find God. And this is where she wanted to go out here and make the change that many black women wind up making after they've run the streets with all the Pookies and the Ray Rays and had all the legitimate children. Illegitimate children. What they want to do is go out here and find religion. They want to find God, and they want to live right. When if they went out here and lived right from the beginning, they wouldn't be in the bad situation that they're in right now. And as Hannah Chaplin wanted to go out here and show how changed she was, what she did, instead of looking to go and back to acting, was she wanted to go out here and try to find her sons and then act out scenes from the Bible for her boys at home. And Charlie didn't understand what was making his mother's behavior become so bizarre, but his mother's behavior was becoming bizarre because it was partially due to the fact that she had been acting ratchet in these streets, and she had contracted syphilis, and the syphilis was having an impact on her mental health. And because the syphilis was having an impact on her mental health, what had happened to Hannah Chaplin was her mental health was deteriorating. But I would have to say part of it was the syphilis, but the other part of it had to do with what Ringo talks about when a woman goes out here and has sex with a man. Now, Ringo has oftentimes talked about how when a woman has sex with a man, he takes on his spirit and his DNA, and she winds up taking on a metamorphosis. And as she takes on this metamorphosis to become like that man, what happens is that woman winds up becoming like that man as they bond and become one. But with Hannah Chaplin, with her having three different men that she had three different children with, what she wound up having was a spiritual conflict. And I talk about this in The Woman Crisis. Whenever a woman is out here being sexually promiscuous and having multiple partners, what happens is she winds up taking on the spirits of those men. And as she takes on the spirits of those men and the DNA of those men, what happens is those spirits start fighting with her spirit in order to try to bond with it. And as those spirits look to try to gain dominance, this causes a conflict inside of the woman because she doesn't know who to bond with. And because she doesn't know who to bond with or who to connect with, and cannot go out here and be bonded to a man in a relationship, what happens is that woman winds up with a mental conflict that I believe wound up being the main foundation of what happened with Hannah Chaplin later on in her life. What happened later on with her life is that she winding up with these psychotic episodes as related to what they say was syphilis, but I believe it was really a spiritual conflict inside of Hannah Chaplin as related to the 3 men that she had been involved with. And as she became involved with these 3 men, what happened was I believe that there was a spiritual conflict, and I believe there was a further spiritual conflict exacerbated by all of the men she had been with as a prostitute while she was working for that Cockney Pookie, Sydney Hawkes. As she was working with that Cockney Pookie, Sydney Hawkes, and being a prostitute, again, all of this did a lot of damage to Hannah Chaplin's spirit, and it did a lot of damage to the point where, again, it caused her to have these mental and spiritual issues. And as she had all of these mental and spiritual issues, Charlie Chaplin was out here trying to go out here and trying to help his mother because his father died at 37. And with his father dead and nobody there to take care of Hannah Chaplin, Charles Chaplin Jr. and his brothers tried to do everything that they could to go out here and try to help their mother. And they tried to help their mother. They tried to help her and tried to help her try to get things as they went out here getting acting jobs. And as they were out here looking to get acting jobs, they were looking to try to go out here and rebuild their lives. And that's where things still were continuing to get worse for Hannah Chaplin. And they were looking to get worse for Hannah Chaplin because she just, again, was extremely dysfunctional. And again, everything that led to Hannah Chaplin with her life falling apart, it just was due to all of the hypergamy she participated in. And all of the hypergamy she participated in basically made it where Hannah Chaplin basically wound up on the road from going to having syphilis to having mental health episodes to going out and winding up eventually having dementia, because in those days, in the 19th century, syphilis was considered to be a very deadly disease, and it was considered to be a deadly disease because if not treated, what happens with syphilis is that it leads to an eventual physical and mental deterioration of a person. And sadly, this is what happened with Hannah Chaplin. What happened with Hannah Chaplin is that she eventually wound up to the point where she wound up with dementia and eventually wound up dying from syphilis. And as she wound up dying from syphilis, her whole life story is a lesson in what happens to hypergamous women. And because what led to Hannah Chaplin winding up on the road to becoming a woman in crisis was the fact that she got caught up in her greed. She got caught up in her hypergamy. She was looking to go get involved with a high status man, hoping to get a high life, but wound up at rock bottom as related to life because of her greed and her lack of faith and lack of commitment. Because had she not got involved with Sydney Hawkes and became a prostitute, her life wouldn't have been bad, because what happened with Hannah Chaplin is she got involved with that Cockney Pookie who pimped her out and put her on the road to becoming a woman in crisis, whose life ended in a very sad fashion, and also led to her son, Charlie Chaplin, coming down the road to becoming a beta male as well, and he became a man in crisis the same way his mother was a woman in crisis, because all the dysfunction he learned from her. And again, men in crisis come from women in crisis. And again, when I look at Hannah Chaplin, she's a textbook example of a lot of the behaviors I see with many black women that are projected as stereotypes about black women. She was one of these poor women who wanted to go out here and have a career. She was one of these women who wanted to get with a guy and had a good guy in the beginning, but decided to go out here and get with the Pookie. And then the Pookie turned her out, and after the Pookie turned her out, she got back with the nice guy, Charles Chaplin Sr. Then, when she saw another guy, she decided to monkey branch over to that guy. And as she got with that other guy, she then wound up having 3 kids by 3 different fathers. So when I hear people talking about, oh, black women act like this, well, look at the story of Hannah Chaplin, and you'll see where many black women got their model for as related to their promiscuous behavior. And also look at it as the model for much of the promiscuous behavior that they say black women participate in, and then the aftermath is them finding religion but then never finding any spiritual peace because all of the demons from their past wind up consuming them. And that's what happened here to Hannah Chaplin, that led to her becoming another example of a woman in crisis. Now, the second Hollywood historical woman in crisis I'm going to be talking about is Academy Award-winning actress Gloria Grahame. Now, Gloria Grahame was an acclaimed actress who had a storied career in legendary films like It's a Wonderful Life, The Bad and the Beautiful, Crossfire, and Human Desire, and had a legendary career working with legendary performers like Jimmy Stewart and Humphrey Bogart. Unfortunately, in spite of all of that success that Gloria Grahame had in her career, she wound up becoming on the road to becoming a woman in crisis due to the issues in her personal life as related to the low self-esteem she had as related to her appearance and her numerous dysfunctional relationships she had with all of her 4 husbands. Now, Gloria Grahame was born in Los Angeles to a father who was an author and an architect, and a mother who was an actress herself and an acting teacher. Now, Gloria Grahame's mother went to teach her daughter acting, and she hoped that she would follow in her footsteps. Unfortunately, as she followed in those footsteps by dropping out of Hollywood High School to pursue acting, she wound up on the road to becoming a woman in crisis. Now, Gloria Grahame went on to start out with her career by going out here participating in theater, and then eventually, after she did some theater in the mid-40s, she eventually started to graduate to films, starting out with a film called Blonde Fever before coming into one of her signature roles in It's a Wonderful Life. And after she wound up taking the role in It's a Wonderful Life, she then wound up starting out in an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Genre. Now, after receiving this Best Supporting Actress second signature role, one of her signature roles, Gloria Grahame then starred with Humphrey Bogart in A Lonely Place, and was acclaimed for that performance, even though the film was a box office failure, and asked Howard Hughes to let her to be lent out for roles in legendary films like Born Yesterday and A Place in the Sun, but was denied by Howard Hughes to star in those roles and was allowed to perform for another film, Macau, in 1952. Now, Gloria Grahame only had 9 minutes on screen for the film The Bad and the Beautiful. However, this film was the one that she won her Best Supporting Actress Oscar for, and it became her 3rd signature role after the role in It's a Wonderful Life, Crossfire, and The Bad and the Beautiful. This became her Oscar-winning role, and she went on to star in other noir films like Human Desire. Now, as Gloria Grahame went on to have a very storied career, she went on to do other films like The Greatest Show on Earth and Not as a Stranger. Again, she had really a great career going. However, her career started to wane when she took a risk and went out of the noir genre and going out here looking to play a role in the musical film Oklahoma. And this film Oklahoma basically was the thing that derailed Gloria Grahame's career, that led to her going from being a feature film star to winding up in a place where she could only wind up playing supporting roles in B films. and eventually winding up in television. Now, Gloria, this was one of the things that led to exacerbating her situation as related to becoming a woman in crisis, because as Gloria Grahame was out here looking to build up her career in Hollywood, she had extremely low self-esteem as related to her physical appearance. She believed that her upper lip was too thin and that the ridges were too deep, and in the beginning she began stuffing cotton tissues under it, which she thought would give her a more, what she believed to be, sexier look. Now, co-stars noticed this when they were dealing with her in kissing scenes, and she then, in the mid-1940s, began looking to do cosmetic procedures to her lips and her face as related to her low self-esteem, and she went to go out here to the point where she had so much plastic surgery that it rendered her upper lip immobile due to extreme nerve damage, and all of this was laid the foundation for a lot of her issues as related to her self-esteem and her self-worth. Even though she had great success in her career, she still had this complex about her lip, and because she had this complex about her lip, I believe this led to the foundation for her low self-esteem, and this low self-esteem was the thing that led to her winding up having problems with her relationships with her husbands. Now, Gloria Grahame was married 4 times, and she was married first to actor Stanley Clements from 1945 to 1948, and this is where Gloria Grahame started to participate in hypergamy, monkey branching to director Nicholas Ray. Now, Nicholas Ray was a divorcee who already had a son, and she wound up having a son with Nicholas Ray. And as she was involved with Nicholas Ray sadly found out something that was extremely disturbing as related to the situation, as related to the marriages. Now, as Gloria Grahame looked to divorce Nicholas Ray, she then went out here and got involved with another man, Cy Howard. And as she got involved with Cy Howard found out that an extremely disturbing fact about Gloria Grahame, that she had been involved with Nicholas Ray's son, Anthony Ray. And this basically showed me how Gloria Grahame's life was spiraling out of control as related to her personal life, because Gloria Grahame's life was spiraling out of control as related to the complex over her lip, the complex over the situation as related to her appearance, and she wanted to get control over a situation because her marriages were not working out, and that's where I believe she decided to get involved, allegedly, with Anthony Ray at 13 years old. This is where she decided to get involved with Anthony Ray at 13 years old while she was still married to his father. Again, this was extremely disturbing because, again, it showed me that Gloria Grahame was not looking to have a relationship where she was looking to be a partner in the relationship. No, she was looking to gain control over someone. And this is why she basically, I believe, got involved with Anthony Ray. She got involved with Anthony Ray because she wanted to get power over a boy. And this is the type of sexual deviancy that deviants participate in, because, again, sexual deviance is not about sexual pleasure or having a relationship with a mature person. It is all about getting power and control in the relationship because the person feels powerless about their whole lives. Now, as Gloria Grahame was involved with Anthony Ray, she had gone on to have multiple children, and this is where Cy Howard wanted to go out here and protect his daughter. He wanted to get custody over his daughter, Mariana Howard, and he wanted to get custody, and it led to a custody battle. And this custody battle basically compounded a situation with Gloria Grahame as related to all of the spirits and DNA inside of her. Now, Ringo oftentimes talks about how women, when they go out here and have sex with men, they wind up having to take on their spirit and their DNA, and that's what causes the metamorphosis as they look to bond. And I believe that was also part of what led to many of the issues that led to Gloria Grahame's nervous breakdown. Her struggles in her career, and as related to her career going into decline, her custody battle with Cy Howard, this is what led to her going out here looking to get power by participating in the relationship with Anthony Ray. But all of this led to the eventual nervous breakdown, and this nervous breakdown led to her winding up having to take electroshock therapy in 1964. And this relationship with Anthony Ray went on all the way up until about 1974, a few days until their 14th anniversary. But it just shows how things were just deeply troubled for Gloria Grahame, a woman who basically wound up on the road to becoming a woman in crisis, because yes, she had a great skill as an actress, but she did not know how to navigate a good personal life, and all of the issues from her personal life wound up taking her further down that road to becoming a woman in crisis. And as she wound up on that road to becoming a woman in crisis, she got caught up in hypergamy, looking to monkey branch from man to man. And as she got caught up looking to monkey branch from man to man and looking to get power in the relationship, eventually, because she felt so powerless as related to her appearance, what she did was get involved with Anthony Ray's 13-year-old son, looking for what we call today a son husband, and looking for somebody to have a codependent relationship with, instead of having an interdependent relationship. Because again, according to reports, Gloria Grahame's relationship with Anthony Ray was the thing that basically led to the end of her marriage, because the husband was so disturbed, and the guy, Cy Howard, thought, oh, I'm going to be able to get with a woman who he thought he could go out here and build a family with. But you can't build a family with somebody who's caught up in dysfunction. Somebody who's caught up in dysfunction, you can't build a family with, because Gloria Grahame was a woman in crisis. She was a woman with serious self-esteem and self-worth issues, because in Hollywood, people are always trying to play mind games with you, and that's what winds up messing up people. And sadly, Gloria Grahame's star wound up fading eventually, and as she wound up fading, she eventually got involved with a man from 1979 to 1981 called Peter Turner. And as she got involved with Peter Turner, she eventually sadly wound up with breast cancer. Once again, when it went resurged after a 1974 diagnosis, she managed to get it to go into remission. But as it came back in 1981, she refused to get any sort of treatment, and this sadly led to the death of Gloria Grahame in 1981, where she wound up dying at the age of 57. Now, Gloria Grahame, again, was a brilliant actress, but sadly she was a woman in crisis, and she was a woman in crisis due to the hypergamy she participated in. She was a woman in crisis due to her low self-esteem, and she was a woman in crisis because she participated in sexual deviancy by participating in a pseudo-incestuous relationship with her stepson. I mean, this woman basically was one of the most dysfunctional women I have ever read about. But when I listened to her story, it's a story of a woman in crisis, a woman who wound up in crisis because she got caught up in Hollywood. She got caught up in the desire to become a Hollywood star. And unfortunately, as her star faded, her life fell completely apart, leaving her to become a historical woman in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to lots of women winding up not being able to have it all and are winding up on a dysfunctional road where they're miserable, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also pick up The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashworth, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to learn more about a faded former teen sitcom star and her struggles, you can pick up my screenplay book, All About Marilyn, which details the story of an actress whose life was on the road to becoming a woman in crisis until she turned tragedy into triumph. Now, you can find All About Marilyn on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find All About Marilyn at other online booksellers like Smashworth, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all. And if you want to see me make more videos about historical women in crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, the Beauty Myth. Learn the beauty secrets of the goddess next door in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, the Beauty Myth at online booksellers everywhere today. now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.